Meeting, please stand for the reading of the council decree. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities in the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. Thank you. I have apologies from councillors Whitty Hero, John Hainsworth and Paul Sharland, noting that Paul has deserted us to watch rugby in South Africa. I'm not sure if that's a reasonable excuse, but we'll take it. Would somebody like to so move, please? Acceptance, Councillor Bucknell and Councillor Field seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. We have a public forum this morning, and I'll ask Danielle to come forward. This is on Bulls Domain, and Danielle is, I describe Danielle as Bulls netball, Bulls rugby, Bulls everything. So, congratulate you on your history both with this council and that community. You have 10 minutes, including question time. How you use that time is yours. Time is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Andy. Kia ora, everybody. My name is Danielle Whakatahi. I've lived in Bulls for over 20 years. We own a home in Bulls, and we also, my husband and I also own a business in Bulls. Also the captain of the Bulls Netball Club. We established the club in 2017, so next year will be our 10 years celebration. I'm also the organiser and convener of the Bulls Junior Rugby Tennis Side Tournament, which is the largest event held in Bulls every year. And in fact, it's one of the biggest events held in the Rangitikei every year, with over 2,000 people attending the event, the majority being from outside of the Rangitikei region. I'd like to make comment regarding the Bulls Domain Master Plan. There are several areas of the plan that are of interest to me. However, I'm going to focus solely on the Bulls Domain. On page 18 of that report, there's an inaccuracy in there that I would like to be corrected in that report, or for the council to note that it's incorrect. Mainly being as a comment there, it says, due to the condition of the courts and the requirement to travel for matches, some netball members have just established a women's rugby team. So I know that this was a point in time, but the Netball Club is an affiliated member of the wider Rugby and Sports Club in Bulls, which I sit on that committee of. We only had 3 players who left netball to play rugby, and they played that because they could have the opportunity to play rugby. It wasn't about the safety of the courts. We also had an additional 3 players that both played netball and rugby in the same year. More importantly, was what was also left out of the report was the safety of the courts. This has been reported to the council before on several occasions. We've had multiple players receive injuries due to slipping on those courts. The worst was the beginning of last year, where a player slipped, completely tore their knee, required surgery, and still have now missed 2 consecutive seasons of netball, and the impact that that's had on their wider life because of the state of the courts. Whilst I understand that this report was a point in time, it's important, I think, that you all know that for us, Bulls Netball, this year we've had 6 senior competition teams. That's the most senior competition teams of any club within the Rangitikei region. We're the only club in the Rangitikei to field a men's team in the Netball Manawatu competition. Yet we're the only club that does not have adequate court facilities. We understand that there's also a lot of interest for coming to play for Bulls next year due to the success and culture of the club. We've got 4 teams in semi-finals this Saturday in Palmerston North. We're unable to host external teams due to the state of the courts. We have pre-season exchanges with a lot of other clubs, and we have to hold those as other facilities. This year we've held those all at the Fielding Courts in Duke Street because the Rangitikei courts have not been available for us at that time, or sorry, the Martin Courts. I would also like to encourage the council to focus the efforts on the domain as a whole. I know there's a lot of other stuff in the report, not just for netball, but for all the other activities that go on down there. The Junior Rugby Tournament is a really good example of this. For a lot of people attending, it's their first time coming to Bulls. They've never played in Bulls. And they arrive at a domain that has brilliant playing fields, and that's about it. So the playground, for example, is exactly the same since we moved here over 20 years ago. And I would hate that it's still the same playground in 20 years to come. The public toilets are in desperate need of probably a bust down and a rebuild down at the domain. Even as of last week, we were advised by council staff that the public toilets are not suitable for the junior rugby tournament, which is to be held in 2 and a bit weeks down at the domain. This tournament's been running for many years. We've been advised this year to hire portaloos. We've also been advised that no one will be available to come down and check the bathrooms during the day for any rolls of paper or check for blockages. Last year, we had to call an emergency plumber during the tournament day, as the public bathrooms cannot manage the volume of people. And this was with us having the club rooms open as well. So we had 2 lots of bathrooms going. The Junior Rugby Tournament Committee would like to acknowledge the events funding from RDC that we have received this year for the tournament to assist with our expenses. However, we weren't expecting to have additional expenses of hiring toilets for the event. The Bulls Domain is a very well-used facility. I would like to see this as the biggest focus. I'm a resident on Johnson Street, where Haylock Park sits, and whilst I understand the equity of play and access to play across a community, I do think Bulls is quite well suited in that fact, and I think the biggest bang for the buck from a council perspective would be to focus on one of the largest gathering spaces in the Bulls region. The Bulls Netball Club would also like to acknowledge Murray Phillips from staff here at RDC for the support in trying to improve our netball players' experience at the courts. We've just got some new bulbs put into our lights at the courts. It's really helped with our nighttime trainings. It's made a big difference. But we do understand that budget is very limited of what can be done for us there. The Bulls Netball Club and the wider Bulls Rugby and Sports Club, we are currently working on an external funding application to help with resurfacing of the courts. As a double ratepayer of this council, I appreciate that this cost cannot sit solely with the council. However, we would like to hope that the council will partner with us in other ways to ensure we have fit-for-purpose facilities for our community, which actually benefits the entire Rangitike region. Kia ora, thank you for hearing me, and happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much. I'll take questions from floor. While you're thinking, guys, question from me. In terms of the report gives a large number of things that you could do, and you're saying focus on the domain. Within the domain, where would the focus be? The biggest bang for our buck within the domain would be what?
I think if the ultimate aim was about providing a space that a lot of people could access, even the visitors that travel through town, I would focus on the playground and the ablution blocks. The ablution blocks are in a poor state, absolutely poor state, and when visitors come down to the domain and see them, it's a little bit embarrassing, I think. So that would definitely be an area I'd focus on.
Has there been any, I'll come to you next, Councillor, has there been any discussion between rugby and council around a shared service? In other words, if we expanded the facilities of rugby club, is that discussion possible?
Yeah, there is definitely some conversations that have been had of that nature. I believe the Rugby and Sports Club, which I sit on the committee of, we are very open to working with council.
So that could be a live conversation. Councillor Dalgety.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great presentation. Just interested, do you think many of the drive-through public go down and use those toilets?
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Lawson.
Very quickly, Worship. Thank you. The report indicates the slippery surface may be caused by drainage and the trees. It also notes that the trees need removing. They are not feature trees and are likely to be self-seeded. Have you had any conversations with the RDC Parks team about the removal of some of those trees?
Yes, we have. As late as probably 2-3 months ago, about when it rains, we cannot train. If the courts are wet, we cannot train because they're just completely slippery, so it's unsafe. But the shade, the sun can't get in to dry off the courts because the trees are blocking that sunlight to come through.
Furthermore, you've had the conversation. What was the outcome of those conversations?
I don't believe it is scheduled or budgeted for.
Often we are appreciative of every councillor.
Absolutely.
As there a community group or rugby club or netball or community that we could work with to do A, some of the physical work, and B, if that is allowed, and B, in terms of fundraising, etc.
Oh, absolutely. I think any, whether it's the Bulls Netball Club, whether it's the wider sports club, whether it's the community trust, we'd be happy to partner with any of those groups. Would be great from a council perspective.
Any other councillors?
Sorry, just what's just going through my mind. So what is making the public go down there when they've got the beautiful new toilets at Te Matapihi?
Because people will take their dogs down there. They take their dogs. There's a lot of travellers. We go down there quite often during the day. There's people down there who've never stopped there before. They're new to town, but they go down. The kids jump into the playground. They take the dogs for a walk, for a run around. It's just it's a much nicer space to be in, I think.
Thank you.
So you note that you're going through some funding applications at the moment.
Yes.
And when will the outcome of those be known?
Our biggest application closes this week, so I don't think we're going to be made aware until possibly October.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor O'Carr.
Kia ora, thanks for your report. Well done. I'm just thinking, you've seen the people down there, the public down there at the Domain. Do you see them, they're going down there for a look or walk or something? Is there any chance, or do they go past the marae, or have you had a relationship with the marae as such down at Pariwahawaha, talking to them in terms of abolitions in the meantime, while we're trying to figure something out? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, we're in conversations this year with Pariwahawaha in regards to parking. Definitely, the toilet one's a new one for us that we've just come to light for us. So definitely, we could have that conversations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. Really concise report that in terms of product forum. We will take on board your comments around also seeking changes within the report regard to netball, /rugby, etc. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Item number 4, the conflict of interest declarations. Does anybody have any conflicts that they wish to declare at this stage? No. Move to item number 5, the confirmation of order of business. Pardon me, notified of any changes to the staff. Great, thank you very much. Looking for the confirmation of minutes, starting on pages, I think it's 5. So my it's just died. Looking for alterations and corrections, pages 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, you better tell me when to stop, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Any alterations or corrections? No, would somebody like to so move it to active? True record. Thank you, Chair of Assets, Deputy Mayor Dave Wilson. Thank you at this end of the table. Councillor Baird, seconding, those in favour. Those against, carried. Thank you very much. The follow-up actions from the previous meetings passed to the Chief Executive, who will pass to.
I suppose there's just 2 actions on there, Your Worship, so happy to answer any questions if there is any, but there is a couple of status updates in there about where those 2 are at.
Any further query for councillors? Councillor Wong.
The first item about the turnover of staff. Has the staff got any idea when this risk assurance committee should be meeting? Do we have a timeline as to what we want to do there?
through the chair, I will be presenting, including in our report to risk assurance at the end of the month, the additional details that you asked for, that council asked for. It's the 28th.
Thank you very much. Passing my computer across, which I suppose I'm moving to edit further there. Would somebody like to receipt that, please? Looking for mover and seconder. Councillor Gargetti moving, Councillor Rakawa second. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Moving to item number 8, the Mayor's report. I'll take it absolutely as read. But I wish to add a couple of things to it. First of all, on the general comment that we still have a Prime Minister. And that was as of yesterday. I'll also note, thank you. I'll also note that my voting at the local government conference AGM was as suggested by council. I attended the coffee of Chris Brybear, who is now ensconced in place as Chief Executive of Central District Water. And I will take any questions around my report or the appointments and meetings I have had. It's an easy council meeting. Maybe this question anywhere I've been or what I've done. I'll move straight on, then I'll move my report. Seconded Councillor Buckendale. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Move to item number 9, 9.1, the Chief Executive's report, and I'll pass through to the Chief Executive.
Thank you,
Thank
Worship.
you, Karen.
I'll step through the report as I normally do, so just sections maybe 2 and 3 together. If there's any questions on those. Section 4, Health, Safety and Wellbeing Dashboard. No submissions, we still continue to have a very active submission list, and that will probably continue for a bit longer, but happy to have any questions or queries on that.
I think note there was a submission passed to me to look at. I haven't opened it yet around governance.
Yes, that's whether you, it's more relevant on the governance side rather than the operational side of an amendment that's come out from central government last week. So it's whether you choose to write a submission.
Yeah, as I said, I haven't opened it yet. I'll have a look at it. If needed, I'll circulate to councillors.
Okay. Central District's water, this is just our regular update. As his worship mentioned, Chris Dryberg's now in his role as CE. There's a lot of work going on now with what the structure of Central District's water looks like, and CEs are meeting very regularly about staff transferring and terms and conditions, etc. So we're doing a huge amount of work in that space to make sure everything is lined up as soon as it possibly can be, so they can be assured to have their roles in 1 July next year.
Question from me, the expected time of signing of the shareholders agreement, statement of expectation.
You have a meeting tomorrow to further discuss that at the shareholders committee meeting. So I know the board's got a few suggested changes, so you're considering those at your meeting tomorrow.
Through you, Chair, could I note that we're the first council of the 3 shareholder councils to be reviewing the current document, which is tomorrow. So just noting that.
Thank you, Councillor Wong.
6.3.8, the rural water schemes. We have a general idea of what direction everything is going in, but when is the decision that need to be made, and what actually, how is this decision forming? I
was going to come to that.
Okay.
I got a question on that yesterday. So we had the workshop a couple of weeks ago with Brent on this. The next stage is to work through the issues that came up at the workshop, get feedback from those committees. So by the end of the year, we should be able to have a formal decision on those. That's the timeframe that was presented as part of that workshop as well.
also thank Brent for the work that he's done in that space, and the meeting with the Huntsville Rural Water Scheme the other day was quite fruitful.
That's good. The transfer agreement, so this is a massive piece of work that all three councils are involved in. This is taking across all the water assets and anything to do with those assets as well as the debt. So the teams are working on this. You will have a workshop on this once we get our information all in those schedules. That's likely to be more like September. That you'll have a first workshop and you'll be able to have a look at the list of everything that's on those schedules. It was interesting, the meeting I had earlier in the week, we're way ahead of where other organisations that have been setting up have been. So we're in a good position, which is really good. If there's nothing else on water, just move to the animal dog control report. So this is one every year we bring to council for adoption. And once it's adopted, it goes onto our website. So there is a recommendation.
There's some requirement under the Act. What I might do at this stage is, first of all, could I have somebody receive the Chief Executive's report? Thank you, Councillor Field, Councillor Beard, seconding. Any discussion, I'll put it straight to the vote process. Those in favour, those against, carried.
So that, Johan is here for this one and the next one, if there's any questions on either of those reports as well.
So are there, Johan, do you want to join us at the table? Are there any questions of the dog report, control process and practices? Anything that is senior manager you would like to expand on?
No, nothing, thank you. Your worship, take them as read, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I don't have any on this, Councillor Field.
I just had one thing. One of the things I read about was that a lot of times when dogs are missing or ones like that ends up on Facebook, and there was a comment about how with it going on Facebook and dogs often being returned, it doesn't give the officers an opportunity to know what's happening with the dogs and maybe address different issues, which I thought was really, really interesting for me, who does a lot of Facebook things. I just wondered, is it possible for me to have something along those lines from council to share on social media about the importance of letting animal control know what's happening with dogs so that they can address different problems?
Would you answer them all?
Thank you, Your worship. Yeah, it's a common problem where people feel they're doing the right thing. And we do a lot of educational driving in that direction. But we still have the problem that people feel they'd rather try and sort it out themselves. But we do have some guidance on our website currently as well, but we're happy to share that.
That would be, I would, for me, I would find that really helpful to be able to have something I could share.
I think in terms of your position, it's better that you refer them to the council's website and practices. Fine for you to say, to respond and say, note, there's been a number of conversations around this, and refer them and through that process, rather than you becoming a pseudo.
Oh, no, I don't want to become. Want something to share.
Have I got this right?
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I would always direct people to the information on our website.
Thank you.
A question from me, Johan, and I'm sorry I didn't raise this earlier. In terms of the remits that went to local government, there was a remit on wanting expanded powers, for local government to investigate expanded powers in terms of dog control. Were you aware of that remit?
I was, Your worship.
And do you have any comments around, and it was a remit that has been passed. Do you have any comments around what effect the extra powers could involve?
The act is very old, Your worship. So at this stage, it's just making sure whether the current powers are fit for purpose. and if there's any gaps there that we're currently experiencing, how we can enhance those. But 1996 is a fair while back since the legislation was first introduced.
Would you want to prepare an advice for our council if we are involved in further submissions to local government in this aspect?
Definitely, Your Worship. We, our manager, Animal Patrol, Aaron, sits on one of the executive boards for looking at guidance and legislation. So very much involved in that space already.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any further questions, councillors? So would somebody like to move the receipt of the annual report as required? Councillor Field, wishing to move. Seconded to that. Councillor Buckendale, Councillor Field, do you wish to speak to the report? Any other speakers? It's just receiving the report. I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Please station.
So the next one is.
Don't leave the space.
It's another annual report that council is required to receive, and then it goes on to our website as well. This is around the annual alcohol sale and supply of alcohol act.
You wish to take us further through
No, I'm
this?
sure if there's questions.
Questions, the officers?
Have you got any comment to make?
No, just to say, Your Worship, through you, it's a standard report that we require to report on all our premises every year back to Ola, and so this is nothing new.
And we deal with the need for setting up committees and so on
Correct.
later. That's how I saw it as well. So any further questions around this? Councillor Dalgety?
I was just interested, when a temporary, authority application might be applied for or, given.
Thank you. Through you, normally a temporary authority is issued when there's a change of hands in business. So the current licensee has decided to sell, and for the new person to operate while that transition is going through, they apply for a temporary authority as long as the base license is still in play. So the existing license has to be valid for a temporary authority to be issued. And it gives the new person time to go through the process of applying for a license, which is subject to people being able to object. And so to give them the opportunity to still carry on trading while they are waiting for the formal license, a temporary authority is issued.
Further question?
So is it for a set amount of time or no, it's basically until they get their ducks in a row?
No, it's for a set amount of time. Normally, a temporary authority will be decided by the commissioner, but in general practice, it's normally for a 3-month period. And then they can apply to have that extended if they haven't obtained their base license by then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fee, did you have a question? You said, look up at me before.
No, thank you.
Any further questions? Would somebody like to so move a receipt of the report? Councillor Buckendale moving and Councillor Fee seconding. Councillor Buckendale, do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Any further speakers? Put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Move back to the Chief Executive.
Thank you. The next section covers one of Whakahono Aropi agreements. And it's important that this was documented, that we have received 5 requests from different iwi and they're listed in the report. Discussions have been held with a number of those iwi at the moment. But we also note that the government has now said they are going to repeal this section, and these agreements will no longer be binding like they were. We're still waiting to understand what the new framework is that they are talking about. But at the moment, we're continuing our discussions with each of the iwi that have requested these agreements with us, and working through that with them.
Question from me to the chief executive. We could continue to progress these because that is not an illegal practice, but the powers of engagement will be limited in the future
That's the
within the
indication.
RMA type process.
That's the indication we've had.
So questions first. Councillor Wilson.
Question request. So I'll test the water. Whilst this may be a national government direction, and our chief executive has indicated that ongoing engagement will continue with the 5 people that have submitted to us, I would request that our desire to continue that engagement irrespective of government policy should be strongly included in any further conversations, and I'd like that recorded.
My advice to you as councillor is that if that is your intent to strengthen this, and this is a report from the chief executive, if you wish to reinforce that, you might want to put a motion on the table saying that council actively wants to further these discussions.
I'll test the water on that one once there's another question here, but I'll give some thought to that. That may come.
Take the question first. Councillor Okawa.
There is a question, but I just need to and give a little bit of context and we'll have to do that. Mary,
Try the waters.
try the waters, I'll try the waters. So I have been an advocate for mana whakahono and having the relationships with iwi. I see here that we have 5 and what Councillor Wilson has said, I absolutely agree with him that even I want to strengthen those relationships. Do we need a piece of legislation to have these relationships that we already have established with iwi and with the iwi groups in the rangitike? And I believe that the legislation, if they take it away, shouldn't affect the relationships that we have, and that we can continue to have an agreement around the table as council to keep these and maintain these relationships with these ones that want or the 5, and there may be more, because this is just moko pātia. I'm saying these are the 5 iwi that are requesting the mana whakahono. Regardless, and I see that Ngāti Rangi also, but that's a different legislation, eh? That is part of the treaty settlement legislation for Te Waiu o Te Ika. So that really is already implemented. That doesn't affect our relationship, or shouldn't, well, because of a RMA legislation taken on. I'm just putting it out there. So I am absolutely of the thought that we keep up the relationships. Even if the legislation is taken away, we can still have that relationship as a council. Kia ora.
I'll take the motion. So I can see potentially coming. My advice to you as councillors is, first of all, this is an act that is coming via the reform of the RMA. Under local government acts, we will always have, unless it's repealed, an absolute requirement by law to engage with iwi. So this is specific to the local government, to the RMA and RMA processes. And please staff correct me if I'm drifting off the pace here. Take question, Councillor Dalgety.
Yes, just as from my understanding, please. So all those iwi, they're part of our Te Rupu Ahi Ka, and how does that committee fit in with the, this bit of, I don't know, friendliness?
There's nothing to stop an iwi that's outside of the Rangatakariki to have a to request mana whakahana relationship with us. And for instance, I can think of Ngāti Waiwai, the other side of the Rangitikei River, that has effectively wanted relationships in the past. It could be Te Whāratau or whoever. So they could still apply to council and say, we would like a relationship with you. But these ones are all specifically within the Rangitikei district.
Yes, and they are all part of Te Rūpāhika.
Yeah, and they're all part of Te Rūpāhika.
So just how does Te Rūpāhika fit in with this MOU?
Yeah, just before you do, this is part of a raft of government positions within the RMA, and it includes the voting power of non-elected members. And for instance, we have Te Rūpāhika, and that is fine, and we can continue with that. However, the proposed law change will mean that they can't have a voting power. We couldn't delegate. We could delegate them to be sitting on our standing committees without voting power if this becomes enacted.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in terms of council's relationship with iwi and hapu, we have a number of different layers. So this mana whakahona arohe is a direct relationship with iwi authorities under the Resource Management Act, while our Te Rūpāhika committee is made up of generally at the marae hapu level, some are at iwi level, but it's not formally between us and an iwi authority. It's specifically generally with the marae. So there are two different levels in terms of our engagement with iwi.
Great explanation.
Thank you.
Or if I can just make another comment that if the RM is reformed the way it will, it may restrict the iwi ability to be involved in the processes of the RMA, which is where the mana whakahana gave them some powers or some ability to have input into some of those processes. That's what we're trying. But it doesn't preclude the other legislation where there's already treaty settlements and His Worship's right, the Local Government Act responsibilities to iwi as well. This is more around the Resource Management Act processes.
I'm still taking questions, but I'll foreshadow, I'll come back to you, Councillor Baird, a question?
I do have a question, but through the chair, really to Councillor Raukawa, and that is, I wonder what extra relationship is expected from this mana whakahana arohi agreement as opposed to the current track relationships, given the RMA repeal situation. So if the RMA says, no, we can't use those, I'm just wondering what advantages she could see for still having one of these.
I think I'll come back. I'll go to Councillor Wilson. I suspect this wandering move because that may be a response to
Thank you.
the question to us.
Thank you,
Worship, to move something, sir.
That the chief executive or the Rangitikei District Council respond to
Requests for.
requests for that. It's quite complex to the word around, but I want to get an action in there. So requests for mana whakahau relationships. Trying to think of the kind of words for that encapsulates as much as I can without trying to be the solution here at the same time. Is there anybody can help me out here with the exact wording of it?
Continue the relationship.
Yeah, to continue the relationships with it. It's, I guess, if we get some words around that, and I would like to see it as an action because I want to see a little bit more tidy up debate on it if I can.
I'm prepared to give you time if needed, unless it's a suggestion, Katrina.
I'd rather try and speak to something if I could, Your Worship, if we can get some.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Councillor Wilson, let me know if this is what you're intending. That council actively continues developing mana whakahana arohe agreements with iwi, noting the importance of the relationship between iwi and council.
That would capture it pretty well. You know, I would certainly just like to speak to that.
Good wordsmithing.
Yeah,
And
someone far better than me.
looking for a seconder in principle for this to carry on. Councillor Buckendale did have his hand up.
Yes, absolutely.
And he's,
Couple.
so you pass the
Second.
Coral. Councillor Okawa, are you
Shut up.
prepared to second?
Yes.
And we'll wait a second and get these words up so that I'm acting correctly.
There's been a suggested slight tweak to that, whether or not you wanted to include in subsequent agreements, noting the potential legislation change.
Would be wise to.
Yes.
We don't.
And then take that away and put something else new on.
Because the seconder agree with the
Yes,
change.
yes,
Would be wise to
absolutely.
have that in there.
Because they're going to replace it. It says in here they will replace it.
Right, okay, we've now got a mover and seconder. Do you wish to speak to you? I'm looking for speakers. I'll go first order to the mover.
Yes, very quickly. Thank you, fellow councillors, for the level of that quick debate, which I note was not in the order paper, and I know I've raised it. But what it does signal to me is a genuine desire around the council table to continue to have the level of discussions that we all see the degree of value and importance in. So with that, I look forward to your support on this recommendation.
Okay, I'll take speakers or questions to the motion. You were quick,
I did have a question.
I'll take this question.
Given in 9.5 in our documents here today, with upfront investment required of all parties to build the relationship and undertake negotiation, depending on what is included in an agreement, there may be ongoing costs. For example, administration, monitoring, reporting and training costs will need to be discussed and agreed between council and iwi as they become clearer. And my question relates back to what I asked earlier, and what is the advantages that you see in this process as opposed to something which is contained within track, given what I just read out?
I
that-
will allow councillor Okawa to answer the question because it's directed at a councillor. Or do you wish somebody else?
That was, I
Councillor, are you
would like to
prepared to
know.
answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to remember all that you said. So in that 9.5, yes, but it also says in another part of that clause, when the legislation is taken out and renewed, will be August, September. So, or in the next 2 months. So the resources that are used up front for a normal mana whakahono would take a few months to establish and decide what the iwi wants, what council are going to do. This here wouldn't have that much legs or tractions to start off with. But our intention, well, my intention is to say that we still want to have this agreement with you until the legislation changes. And when that changes, we will change with it accordingly, but we still want to have that relationship with iwi and to continue the talks that have been happening since April with the 5 iwi that have already started to talk about these mana whakahonos, so that the momentum still keeps going until, and I'm sure it's said in here, August, September 26 is when that legislation will come away and the new one will come in. So I don't know if I've answered that enough for you, Councillor Beard, but it's my
Councillor, when you say want, can I take that as you're speaking in affirmative?
Oh, yes, I speak in favour of.
Councillor Dalgety.
So a question, please. Will this agreement come back to the council table once?
Yeah, legislation changes.
Has to.
Thank you.
It would be a signed agreement between the parties, so it has to come back to council. We've had 2 speakers in favour. Any further speakers? Look, I'll speak in support. We have taken decades to be able to have valuable conversations with the iwi. And they've effectively been undermined within a very short space of time with a series of legislative changes. And I question that. But we need to engage with them in exactly the same way that we need to engage with all sorts of other parties. Any others? We had 3 speakers in favour. Are there any speakers against? I go back to right and reply.
Thank you, Worship. Very quickly, the key word is activity continues developing. That is the key part of the recommendation. It is not a recommendation that is proposing a solution. It is a recommendation that is proposing further development of what that solution might look like. So that's my final words.
I now must put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Can we record that's been passed unanimously? Congratulations, councillors.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you. The last section is around the electoral system, so I'll pass this over to Katrina to talk through it. if that's all right.
Yeah, certainly. So you received a workshop on this last week. This is your chance to either make a decision or not about the electoral system for 2028, 2031. So this is where you look at whether or not first past the post or single transferable vote is the best voting system. You don't have to make a decision today. If you don't make a decision today, then first past the post as our current voting system will continue to be in place for the 2028 election. So yeah, options: do not make a resolution, or option 2, the resolution, and choose one of those voting systems.
Take any questions around the report? Is there anybody want to put a motion on the table? Councillor Wilson.
I'm happy to move option 1. I'm happy to speak to it, that we do not make a resolution.
Are you seconding?
Process wise, if you don't wish to make a resolution, my recommendation is that you just don't make a resolution.
I see. It's okay. Right. It's a bit of a double whammy with that. That does need a resolution. Yeah, okay. Well, there has to be, surely there has to be something that we accept the report and nothing more.
Or you just received the
We'll
report?
receive it somehow, then if that was the case to achieve.
That would be the correct process. In other words, you can show that you brought it to council attention. Councillor Wong,
Question,
Commissioner a motion.
question.
So can I ask you, are you now withdrawing?
Yes, on the basis of that information, it seems a little bit doubled up somewhere along the line, but yeah, I accept the point, and that has been made by staff and raised, yes.
So what has the advantage of not making a resolution as opposed to actually making a resolution to adopt or to stay with first past the post? Why are we taking this in 2 different directions?
Through you, Your Worship, that's the option we have in the legislation. So back in the last time you had this decision, you did actually make a resolution that applies to the 2028 election. And regardless, we still need, as an organisation, to publicly notify the voting system. So we have to do that, I think, by the 19th of September.
So if you wish to move that it's first past the post, always that's your opportunity to do so now. Otherwise, it just puts there.
Too many choices.
Oh, nobody wants to put a motion on the table. I'll just receive the report. Right, could somebody move that we receive the report?
We have done it, it's already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if it might be wise to receive this one specifically within the report or note that we have.
That council notes that the
Discussed.
was considered by the 13th of August council meeting. I think we do, that council notes that the electoral system
I do realise
option
that traffic count
was
was over 10 years.
August 2027.
I just think it's wise, councillors, to get. Look, I'll say move, looking for a second to see that. Councillor Boston seconding, I don't think I need to speak to it, but those in favour. Those against carried, thank you very much. Anything else? Your report? And moving then to item 10, without, sorry, councillor Okawa.
Just sorry, Aroha, my one question. Through you, Mayor Andy, just a question. What is the antisocial behaviour? Is that what public has done to staff? And that, yeah, thank you very much. Kia ora.
Right, moving on to reports decision 10.1. This is 2027-30 National Land Transport Program submission. I'll move, let's start that. I'll move to Chief Executive.
And then I'll pass it over to Darren and Brent. Through.
Thank you. Yeah, today I've got Brent Holmes, our asset manager for Downer, with me. We'll be able to answer any of your questions as we move through this report. I'll just go through it in sequence. I've got some notes here, so I'll read those as we go, but please ask questions as we go through this if you've got any. So section 2, two main recommendations is to accept a program for maintenance operations and renewals and our low cost, low risk, which we'll be submitting to NZTA for their approval. The maintenance operations and renewals is this month, and low cost, low risk doesn't have to happen until October. Bit of supporting information there. One, the summary of process. I put the workshops, all the workshop information, activity management plan, all the stuff that you guys have seen into AI, and I've spit out a summary for me, which I fluffed up. So hopefully that's yeah. Hopefully that explained a few things that may have slipped through the cracks through the workshops. Bit of financial information, which is covered in the next few sections. Around the rates impact and also how we put the programs together. Section 3, just context, pretty much how we've got to where we are today. Tiffany helped me a bit here with this table at the bottom, thank you, which shows the misalignment between the NZTA process and our process. So we're getting things that, budgets ahead, way ahead where we really need to be with our LTP, and then the NLTP is not adopted till after the NLTP stage. So that kind of summarises how that all fits together. Yeah. Any questions on that one?
I'll first of all receive the report. Would somebody like to move recommendation 1 that the report is received? Sorry, councillor, was it councillor Buckendale? Did you put your hand? Councillor Dalgety, you move it. Looking for a second to that. Councillor Buckendale seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Questions?
I'd just like to acknowledge this report. In my time at council, I don't feel we've had this calibre of information in front of us around roading, and it's really appreciated, and I think it recognises the better place we are with our contract currently. Thank you.
You want to continue through?
Councillor Wilson.
I was just happy to park this till later, but this misalignment with the LTP, I think, needs a little bit of testing so that people understand what that misalignment is, because we're committing to things of budgets that we may not even know prior to our LTP to be approved in September next year, I heard. So just looking to test that if you'd rather run through your report further, because that will lead into the rating impacts.
I'm fine since you brought it up to deal with that one now, but then after that, I'll ask you to take us through the rest of the report and then take further questions. You want to just speak to the alignment with the GPS, etc.
Yeah, GPS is another thing. So they're going to release another GPS for the election. It's the same government releasing that GPS.
Explain what a GPS is.
Government position on land transport. Government policy statement on land transport. Sorry. So they set out their objectives for the next 10 years and review it every 3 years. So that'll come out before the election. Given it's a national government putting it out, we don't anticipate it's going to be too much different, but we never know. As far as the alignment with our processes go, we have to make a decision now around what we're going to submit, which will impact the rates that we set next year. It's not really binding, although we have to stand behind what we put up so that we can deliver it.
Yeah, thank you. I was aware of the implications. I just wanted to make sure that other councils understood that.
Take us through whatever else you want to take us through as part of the report, and we'll take questions through that at the end of that.
Yeah, 3.7 it just sort of goes over what I've just said. Excuse me. Although we can reconsider affordability later, one of the criteria is that we've got to demonstrate that we've got the capacity to deliver it. So, section 4 is just a summary of what we talked about in the workshops around what those programs for maintenance operations and renewals are going to deliver. So we call program 1 optimal, although really it's just delivering our KPIs. It's not moon beams. We're not asking for anything more than what's required to do what we need to do.
Can I just add something really, if I may, to councillors? The optimal program, we've set our KPIs and levels of service, but also with the work that Brent's done on the asset management data and the condition of the network. The engineering determines that the 6% is needed as well. So if we want to keep the network in the condition that it is now, the 6% is needed. So that's really driven by the asset condition assessments and the engineering behind it.
That was one of the slides we showed in the second workshop where we let the computer go nuts over 10 years and it's, you don't want to do this, and then you streamline it out, smooth it out to an annual program and it came out 6.2% for reseals.
Yeah.
So we're on track with that number. Section 5, low cost, low risk. So that entire 24-27 program was declined at the beginning of this period. So we really have got a lot of work in the drawer, if you like, to create a low cost, low risk program for this tranche of funding. What that does though is we're having a different conversation if we had have had that approved, because our baseline would be different. We don't have any claw back to where we were 3 years ago. So now we're talking about rate increases to get back to where we were with an improvement program 3 years ago.
Just a quick question that I'm sure will clear things up for us as well. Low cost, low risk. Do we have any indication this time around that they would approve any of that, or could it be similar to the previous round where they didn't approve any of the low cost, low risk?
It could be similar. We don't know. The criteria hasn't been determined yet, so the criteria comes out in October. Will close in December. There has been indications around the packages of projects you can put forward. For example, the maximum at the moment is 2 million per project. The maximum will be 5 million, but we don't know what the criteria will be. We understand what the current GPS is in terms of the current government direction, which is geared around freight and movement rather than safety. But at this stage, the criteria is not determined yet. We can predict to a certain extent what it will be.
But it is a guess.
Yeah. It's an educated guess, but it is a guess.
So yeah, what we're saying, the program is built, but it's not prioritised and it's not really aligned because we don't know what the GPS is going to be. So it's sitting there waiting, and we're asking really about level of investment rather than that program. So we move on to section 6, financial implications. That little blue table there summarises one of the attachments that was put up. And I think this is probably the one you really want to talk about. If you look at year 1, the impact of the low cost, low risk program is what is going to tip the rates up, the increase on rates for each associated work program. What we're recommending is the optimal at 4.49%. So that's the discussion I think we need to have today. Well, decision. Yeah. Any questions there before we move on?
Yeah, so I've got some questions. So essentially you're asking council to consider 2 sets of decisions. So first, it's a resetting program, and the second is the low cost, low risk. If I look at the history last year, there are a number of councils who didn't pick up low cost, low risk funding, which made further money available within the pool. those councillors weren't penalised in any way?
Penalise at the time, you mean, or?
Yeah, in other words, they'd put in a budget allocation in terms of low cost, low risk, and there was no subsequent policy, penalty for them not actually doing that work.
I think we were in the same boat. How it worked for us is we had that facility to take advantage of the extra little drip fed programs that they gave us. So we were able to secure 2.4 million because we had the facility of the 12. But I think there will be a lot of councils having the same conversations right now about we've kind of lost traction. We're fitting on our hands, but we haven't done.
But what I'm getting here is, for instance, if we develop our long-term plan, if we approve the high level of low cost, low risk funding and develop our long-term plan, and we get into a very, very difficult position, we could actually elect to say we're not going to pick it up. So the downside, and pick it up without penalty. So the downside for putting it in doesn't appear to be other than a potential reputation.
And if you haven't indicated that this is a program of work you want to do, and then government came and said, we've actually got some funding, because we haven't actually submitted that, we can't then apply for it.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Do your councillors understand what I'm getting at here? If you're not understanding, please ask the question. Councillor Dalgety.
So the people that didn't pick it up, do you think that was a rating discussion, or was it they didn't have the capacity to do that work after all?
We didn't have a choice. They didn't approve it. So most councils.
That's for us, all the others that released the money.
Across the country.
Yeah.
It was everyone.
Yeah. So in this case, there was an indication that a whole lot of councils wanted it, and they were declined. $12 million decline.
It is important to note they weren't rejected, they just weren't funded.
Yeah.
So the programs were accepted, the NZTA weren't in a position to fund.
Yeah. And that distinction is quite important. Councillor Okawa.
Is that because they didn't take up the option of that low cost, low risk? So it's funding. Thank you.
All right, it may be useful, and this is something that you want to illustrate for a motion to go on the table. And I am looking at the chair of assets as being the appropriate person to know that.
Well, recommendation 2 there but that one comes first, doesn't it?
Yes, correct.
One's to adopt, so they're a bit upside down, aren't they?
Yeah. No, that can go ahead, that's fine.
Do that one first prior to the recommendation 3?
Yeah.
Okay, well, on the grounds of that, I will move recommendation 2, the council adopts the draft roading activity management plan.
Looking for a seconder to that, councillor Buckendale seconding. Do you wish to speak to it? No. Put it to the vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried. The crucial one here is the next one, 3.
I'm happy to move that unless any other councillors have a burning desire. I will move that we accept the option 1, the optimal program. I do have a couple of amendments to the wording of the actual motion, but I'll wait for a second for that.
No, I want the amendments that you wish to put in before.
Well, not the amendment, just the wording. It's just that I think that the asset management plan, there needs to be some reference into there that council notes note somehow the potential impact or to the LTP. We've got to tie our LTP to this somewhere along the line, that whether this action enables our staff to continue to develop our LTP based on these numbers. But we need to note somewhere along the line that it may, because we're going to be developing LTP on numbers that we don't understand that we're even going to get until September next year. So unless it can be captured somewhere else, I'll leave it. But I think it needs to be reflected somewhere in the recommendation that council notes. Is it a risk or accepts
That
that?
is a separate recommendation if you wish.
We do it as separately then, but as part of the discussion, I think it should be noted in this.
So looking for a second, councillor was it councillor Dalgety, I think?
Happy to second.
Okay, we'll go with that. Councillor Dalgety seconding. Do you wish to speak to it?
But very briefly, in my role as chair of the Assets and Infrastructure Committee, I have had an opportunity to speak with Darren, Mr. Black, our roading manager, regarding this, the implications of this. And I think the report, as indicated from Councillor Dalgety, and the subsequent asset management report that we reviewed at the workshop a few weeks ago, clearly details our position pretty strongly. As a district, we cannot allow our roading infrastructure to fail or get behind the eight ball, because it's a long, hard crawl back to try and pick it up. And it is a back to basics. It is a core function for us as a rural district. And I really do think we need to submit our best foot forward to NZTA. We should continue to let them know that we're here. We should continue to let them know the obstructions in our way to developing a good, solid asset management plan to reflect our roading network. And I think the best way to do that is to put forward our optimal program as detailed in the report today, noting a second recommendation, which I may bring forward later.
I'll speak to the motion. I should go to the second first, actually. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, basically, we've been told today that the optimum is 6.2%. And so based on the asset condition considerations and the engineer's recommendation, I think we need to go to that full 6%. We can't be kicking the can down the road and letting our asset, which is key to our district. We're a big geographical district. Roading is our biggest cost, especially once water goes. If we don't do something about this, we're heading to a crisis position. I feel we've been told about the analogy of painting your house. Do we want our house to fall down because we haven't maintained it? So I feel that rates capping is on the horizon, and we won't have the opportunity to do this going forward. So I think we need to push this as hard as we can at this juncture. I'm in favour of the motion.
I'll speak to the motion. I actually think that calling it the optimal program is a misnomer, because it's not the optimal situation. The optimal situation is where you improve what you have and you are able to therefore plan for the future. What we're facing is larger agricultural gear, heavier trucks, and a more challenging environmental position. And we know all those things. So this isn't an optimal position. This is a status quo position. It's suboptimal. That anything less than this will rapidly deteriorate the network. The consequence of this decision is that the long-term plan discussions and financing are going to be a very tough process. And we will be forced to find savings wherever we possibly can. And I think we have to deal with that conversation when that conversation arises. But it's not going to be easy. So I'm thinking in favour. Any other speakers against?
Question.
Take questions, certainly. Councillor Wong.
Just to question actually your stance here that these conversation, the long-term plan conversation will take place obviously in the future, but I haven't heard any staff comment. Actually, on the financial, we've got figures here which are in isolation from the long-term plan. Could we have some perhaps feeling as to how the actual that fits in with their view of the long-term plan? So
You've got to be careful, they've got to be careful here because this is a governance position.
I'd rather have
I'm prepared to see where this goes.
I think in order to answer that, it's to Darren's earlier point, the misalignment of deadlines for submitting this program and our development of the LTP is inherent in the discussion that you're actually asking for now, because in an ideal world, we would develop our LTP along with our priorities, and you would build in the financing needed for your roading and have that confirmed and know what that is. But that's not how this works. So it's very difficult. So today, the decision we've got to make today is based on Darren having to submit the program to NZTA. And in that, then we will know what those figures are. But we won't know what those figures are going to confirm to be even before we start our new LTP, which is one of our problems. All we can do is put the funding in that we know that you've approved, work with that, and then if it changes like it did last time and 12 million was removed, then we find that out way after the LTP is being established. But we will just put the figures in based on the guidance you give us today.
thank you.
Any other speakers against? We've had 3 speakers in favour. No, I must go back to write a reply.
Thank you, Worship, but I think it's been captured by the discussions previously.
In that case, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carry. Next recommendations are in terms of the low cost, low risk investment option. If somebody wishes to put a motion on the table with regard to recommendation 4.
I'm happy to move that we approve option C, the $4 million per annum.
You second it. Second it. Thank you. Do you wish to speak to it?
I'll just comment that as this Worship the Mayor's outlined, there is no downside to that option as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Any further speakers to it?
Speaking in favour, clearly as seconder, I would agree that there is no downside. I suppose there can always be risk, but having said that, this is the figure that we may be able to consider in our LTP planning should we become under rating stress pressures due to other conflicting matters. Then this is the figure that we can be playing with, and it's signalled in the report what those implications may be. So we do have scope and levers to pull, but let's submit it as we know it will protect our roading infrastructure by going with it. So, happy to support it.
Any further speakers or questions? Is there anything that I haven't been aware of that I don't want staff sitting there thinking, and you're doing the wrong thing, or no?
There's a recommendation.
No, I didn't say doing the wrong thing because it's an argument for or against, but in terms of information that's required. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 5. This gives the submission to NZTA consideration and minor editorial and formatting changes option. You wishing to vote?
Happy to vote. This is just a process matter.
So Barkendale seconded. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, it's purely simple process.
I'll put this straight to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. You wish to make another recommendation noting it is fairly well covered within the report.
Yes, and that's what, so I'm just going to check that with our Chief Executive and staff. If my concerns you feel are covered in there, and a recommendation is not required regarding my concerns, noting the impacts that this may have on the LTP or the complexities of LTP. If it's not required, then I'm happy to say I don't need a recommendation around it.
I think, through you, Your Worship, I think it has been covered in here. And I think the position that we would always take is to continue to advocate to align the timeframes for the NLTP, the LTP, so we can actually develop our LTP with the figures in mind. So if you can leave that with us, wherever we can, we continue to advocate it as do the Roding team. because we
Happy with that, Your Worship, and happy that the conversation's been had at this meeting today.
Just an extension to that, I've had conversations recently, within the last few days, with the shadow spokesman, Labour, on exactly this matter. I've reached out to the minister, the oversiding minister, NZ, Bishop, and had a series of conversations with NZTA around exactly these matters. Nationally. Councillor Wagner.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
It depends what the comment is, but we'll try you up.
I'd just like to commend Mr. Black and Mr. Manning and their staff for the way they've presented all the facts in the last 2 or 3 workshops. As a new councillor, I'll be absolutely gobsmacked with the amount of information we've had, and it's made it a lot easier for someone like myself to come to grips with what we're talking about today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't think that needs a motion. I think they can just take it as given. If you don't, thank you to the two of you. You've spend our money wisely.
If we get it.
Right, thank you. I move now to 10.2, the Bulls Domain Master Plan, and I'll welcome Craig Pocock to the arena. Councillors, I'm aware that we may end up running over the 2 hour. Welcome, Craig. Thank you, Your Worship. The floor is yours, through the Chief Executive. Take us through it. You can take it that councillors will have read the report in detail.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Craig Pocock tōku ingoa. I'm a landscape architect from Wellington. Do a lot of master planning and urban design work in the Manawatu, Maunganui area for the last 15 years. I've known Anu for probably a decade. I've been involved in other projects like Taihape for you, and I was asked to be involved in this plan. So I'm going to limit it to 10 minutes. I'm going to move pretty quickly. And so just go over this really quickly. So just in general, you all know this, but as an outsider coming in, looking and being involved in the project, you have a population of just over 2,000 people in Bulls. It's a very passionate and focused community. I work in a lot of different communities. It's a very focused and passionate community. And there's a whole lot of layers of interesting history and culture and values within Bulls if you slow down long enough to see it. But I think that's part of the problem, is people aren't slowing down long enough to see it. So talking to the community from day one, and I'll talk about the meetings that we've had, but the conversation is very much about they define themselves by the highway. They see that as a negative, that the community leaders that I spoke to within both sporting groups and community leadership groups talked about the town being in quadrants. That's how they described a lot of the conversations, that the best open space is the domain, but it's not easily accessible by anybody, except for maybe a vehicle. But if you think about cycling, walking, youth, any of those issues, it's not particularly well accessible. You also have a very high percentage of youth in Bulls, higher than the national average, and you've got a higher percentage of Pacifica and Māori in Bulls than the national average. What's interesting is the highest percentage of those youth sit in areas of Bulls that don't have open space and playgrounds. So there's a mismatch between where your youth are sitting and where your investment is. And so the two schools provide 90% of your recreational value, which is private land. So this is, I'm just giving you feedback from the conversations. So what's interesting though, is on the upside is, and you know, I've done dozens over the last 30 years of township designs and master planning, is being on the intersection of the state highway brings economy and it brings opportunity. And so even though this is a open space analysis and then a master plan for Bulls and also Haylock Park, we very much considered how do you invest in open space that helps support the Bulls community, both economically and with growth and quality of life, because public realm should do that. The Tai Happy report did the same. So process-wise, just so that you're confident on how the process was run, I'll go through this reasonably quickly. So day one, we sat with council leadership and staff and said, how do you want to do this? What is Bulls like? What are the opportunities? What are the constraints? Who do we talk to? How do we design an engagement process? So we talked about that. And then we went and talked to both mana whenua, the council leadership, and also community leaders about, well, we're going to run this project. We're going to be in your town. We want to give you a heads up that this is going to happen. Do you have any comment before we start? So that there was no cold start in this process. We also reviewed the district plan and the Bulls spatial plan that were done a few years before this process. So wanted to understand all the work, the hard work that the council had already done. And at the end of the process, we then wrote a cross-reference between what the district plan said, what the spatial plan said, and what we heard in those workshops, and all that's outlined. So if you're following along the report, top right-hand corner, pages 5 to 7, outlines the things that I'm talking about. We then went and looked at every open space in Bulls, and every open space included obviously council reserves and the domain, but also looked at the schools, NZDF land, playgrounds, the river landscape, and regional council land. So we looked at the whole of Bulls in a holistic way. And then we went to start the engagement. So that process to date took a few months, and then we started the engagement process, and that required council staff to actually come up with quite a comprehensive list, listing out all the different organisations within Bulls, which there is a lot, and who the contact people would be, both within sporting and recreational groups. We then wrote to every one of those groups and told them, we're coming into your rohi, we want to talk to you about this stuff. These are the things we want to talk about. Here's some plans, here's some questions. We'll see you in a month. So we warmed them up. And then over the course of 2 days, pretty intensively, we had over a dozen meetings from early in the morning until late in the evening, just hit everyone. So everybody was spoken to within a reasonably short period of time. So everyone had equal face time. And then there was probably, from those conversations, about 6 months of further conversations where someone's like, oh, you haven't spoken to this person, or we've been thinking about it and we'd like to give you more information. So the engagement actually went on for upwards of around 6 months. So you could imagine there was a massive flow of information coming in. People we spoke to, we talked about sporting groups. So Danella spoke, recognise your koreo, your presentation, fully agree with everything you've said. But we talked to the sporting groups, rugby, netball, tennis, and other sporting groups. We spoke to recreational groups like the Rangatiki Dog Club, who are really an amazing group of people, but, sort of working under the radar. We talked to a range of community leadership. So there was like 4 or 5 different community leadership groups that aren't mana whenua that are in Bulls as well. So you've got a very high number of leadership groups. Spoke to event organisations, predominantly on the domain and Tīmata Pahihi. Event organisation put space to talk to mana whenua and also the likes of the Haylock family. And then we talked to the schools, and schools are really interesting because they really understood the public realm and the open space with obviously who they manage and look after. We had a good conversation with Ohakia, which is very interesting. You have a situation in Bulls I haven't seen anywhere else in New Zealand, which is interesting, where you got NZDF land, private land, supplying public space to areas where you're missing public space, but you don't have control over it. So that created an interesting problem to consider. And how they fund that investment is really interesting as well. And then we had just an open public workshop that evening where the mayor and other councillors came and participated in. And so we took all that information and we started both looking at, so we were always going to look at the Bulls domain, but the question is, how does it fit into the bigger picture? So if you invest in the Bulls domain, is the investment the right type of investment if you think about the big picture? And so we looked at all of the open spaces, as I mentioned at the beginning, and then ultimately, my comments to you which is spelt out in the document, is that there's enough open space in Bulls. You're not short of open space. You have everything you need, and strategically it sits in the right locations. What it does need is targeted investment that acknowledges that different open spaces play different roles. So some open spaces are around events and sports, while others are around play or hospitality. The open space investment could come from a range of sources. So a lot of the work we're doing in Wanganui, there's probably a dozen projects in Wanganui. They're co-funded and sponsored by council, but also private investment and central government investment. And I think the opportunity in Bulls, because of how well organised your community is and how much money they carry, particularly in their sports space and their event spaces, that you would work with them to get investment. And the community is well organised. They're well organised, they're passionate, they're focused. And so they're an incredible asset to work with to help you master plan and fund. So then back into the process, once we understood the bigger picture, we then looked at the two major open spaces. There was a debate about, what the role of the Bulls domain is versus Haylock Park. And do they compete with each other and how does it all work? So we did a master plan design for both. The way we did that is quite process driven. So what we did is we created these things called heat maps, where you took every person's comments from the engagement. So you can see rugby and the dog club and schools and events, and we put all those notes on top of each other. So the more brighter color something is, the more important that object is to a range of people. So Daniela talked about the changing rooms. It's bright orange for a reason. It's really critical to a whole lot of events and sports, for example. And then we created these master plans. And so for me, the domain plays a really critical role, both in sports, events, destination hospitality. That is about slowing people down. People actively choosing Bulls as a stopping point, that they're coming from Wellington and they're heading to either Taranaki or up into Auckland, and this is the 2.5 hour break location. And the minute we can slow them down, we can get money off them. So it's important. So the domain plays a really important space in the destination hospitality for exactly the reasons they were speaking about. Why would you go to the domain? It is about the playground, it's about dogs, it's about open space. It plays a different role from the toilets in town. Then the community playground, it is the primary play space. So if you look at the sports, the women's changing rooms, resurfacing the courts, field lightings, it's actually quite low investment. Predominantly, it's actually all pretty good. There just needs to be some key investment into local certain places. Same with the events, upgrading the toilets and kitchen is absolutely critical. You have, and Daniela spoke about, the national events within netball, but the dog, you have national dog competitions held every year on the domain, where people come from all over New Zealand. And I think it goes reasonably quietly. So things like kitchens and toilets are really important. And so you can see through the list of what the master plan suggests that you do. And the important thing is, you look at things like the changing rooms and the upgrading the toilets, and the toilet, by that investment supports a whole lot of different activities on the domain. So investment in the changing rooms and the toilets supports sports, events, destination hospitalities. The community playground doesn't work with young kids if you don't have a good quality toilet. So you can see how a single investment supports a whole lot of different events. Haylock, the community is very passionate about Haylock. They felt like maybe the space has been a bit forgotten and needs investment, and it was dedicated to that investment. We had a lot of conversations, particularly in the sports space. There's a real need for junior fields, particularly in the soccer space. And so we basically took all that on board. Also, this side of the quadrants, we don't have a high quality playground. The only playground on this side of the quadrants that isn't in a school is Kitty Hawk, and Kitty Hawk's now, last time I was there was fenced off, and it's controlled by a Hakia, not by you. So we can get 2 intermediate sports fields. because of the layout of the park, it faces the perfect direction for sports. So it faces north-northwest, which is perfect for sports. You can get 2 softball diamonds on there, a playground, splash park. There is ideas of food production forest. And so the community, these were the components from the engagement that we heard. They wanted it on Haylock, and they didn't see any of that competing with anything that was on the domain. The other thing we did is we talked to the developer directly to the south of the site and talked to him about the layout of his subdivisional design and how it should connect into that open space network in the future, which was really useful. And then because we'd done this and you had quite a clear picture of how the domain might work and how Haylock Park might work, we did a really quick strategy and says, look, if you look at Kitty Hawk and Bridge Street and all the rest, they have a role to play. And if it was me, then I would quickly make these small changes. And that might be putting in some tables, it might be some shade, but minor, quick investments. And then at the end of the document, I thought you might say, well, Craig, what do you do next? Like, what one do we do first, right? And I think you've heard the answer first thing this morning, which is you need minimal to minimum investment. There's no large investment. The investment can be staged over a 10-year period. I don't think you have to do, there'll be stuff you'd want to do in the next 12 months if we can work it out, but it could be staged over a 10-year period. Early focus is on that community partnership with winning funding. So we're winning a fair amount of funding out of Wanganui. Every one of our projects are funded from external funding that is community sponsored, particularly with Tangata Whenua, with community groups, rowing groups. We're being pretty successful in that space. So I think you set that conversation up early. And then it's really a focus on open space partnerships. Ohakea have a really important strategic role in Bulls based on the land they own. And then the same with both schools. The schools do a lot of the heavy lifting in this open space. And as does Tīmata Pihi would be a key space for that, slowing people down, capturing them in Bulls and then redirecting them where you want them to be. So we talked about quick wins. The quick wins are on the Bulls domain. Predominantly, I've said around the changing rooms. Number 7, you talked about Marae car parking. The council owns that piece of land at 7. A couple of gates would increase your car parking by at least 100 cars by just simply putting a gate in. So early quick wins. The second stage midterm wins really does focus on Haylock and then more investment into Bulls. And then the third one really is just, those light ones. Hopefully that wasn't too quick. Because I'm trying to stick to even 10 minutes. And I'm open to any questions if that's okay with you, Your Worship.
I have 2 or 3, and some of them are teacher process. So we've had a public forum this morning, and one of the requests from the public forum was that this is your report, but would you consider altering it along the lines of suggested by Danelle in terms of she made some requests right at the start of her proposals in terms of rugby, netball, etc.
So there's 2 things, Your Worship. There's, I think, everything Danelle asked for is in the report. So I think if you adopt the report, all the stuff like early investment, the resurfacing the court, the removing all that stuff's in there. How would you do it? So the comments about the numbers of players and that was just captured straight off the community engagement. And I'm hesitant to change those conversations because then it looks like I'm manipulating what I heard on the day. And you're right, it's a moment of time in 2024. So I'll take your leadership or your advice. Strategically, I think everything that Danelle's talking about is in the strategic plan.
I mean, but it's your report that we'll be looking to adopt it, to receive it. It's we could ask that it be changed, or we could note that there were changes proposed to it. I think we would.
Yeah, Bishop, can I make a proposal? I feel it's important that we reflect what was in those conversations because this document belongs to these community groups. It does not belong to us. So we just reflected exactly what they told us. I think what's more important, Danielle, if there's anything you think in the actions or the activities that we have missed, let's be sure that we capture all of the things that we can do, that we can update, but I wouldn't mess with the conversations because those are actual conversations we had with all those groups.
Would you be happy if there was an not an addendum to the report capturing those comments.
Yep, and we can do that as a flexible report and we can redate it and reissue it.
Okay, thank you. Next question. There was quite a suggestion around best bang for your buck. And those suggestions within that was, first of all, the domain number one, and within the domain, probably toilets and facilities there is best bang for a buck. Would you support that principle?
100%. I think that's.
Thank you. I'm just ticking boxes here. Third one on that. There was a suggestion also that the rugby club privately owned could potentially have conversations with council, that is a council-owned facility, in terms of, in your opinion, you act in these areas professionally, if that's quite a large area, would that be a worthwhile path for a council to consider?
So that's different from what I've heard. So my understanding, talking to the rugby club, one of the things I proposed to them is, well, why don't we just take the block out altogether? Is there a better location for it? Do you want to work in a different way? But there are sensitivities between the rugby club and a bar and having a liquor license, and the changing rooms and the toilets and the kitchen and how it works. So keeping the two separated allows more people to use it. Putting them together creates some conflict. So for example, the Rangatiki Dog Club, even though, and they run the nationals, they'll use the rugby club on certain conditions as long as the bar's all locked down, but they need that secondary space. The space very much is around not only just toilets, but women's changing space. They don't have dedicated for women's sports. And so the investment in the current council building, that is council building, would be around better toilets, better changing facilities, and upgrading the kitchen so that the building addresses both directions, both the courts and the fields. So in my mind, from what I heard, it makes sense to invest in the block where it is and not take that use and add it to the rugby club building, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that. I'll take any questions from other councillors. Thank you, councillors.
Kia ora, through you, the chair. You just, in your presentation, you highlighted the toilets and the changing shed for women. Where does your kitchen facility feature? Is that the second phase?
I think it's all under the same roof. And so the kitchen facilities, I'm assuming is at the back of the same building. Yeah. But it looks like it's been boarded up. I don't think it's used. And I think it used to face the tennis courts. Maybe it supported the tennis club, the netball club.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Just a reminder, councillors, this is not a funding platform that we're involved in today. This is receiving a master plan, and a lot of work's gone into this. And it gives you options to consider in the future around funding options. Councillor Delgado.
I guess my question is along those lines. You're obviously working across the North Island anyway. You did a similar plan in Taihape, and we haven't been able to progress a lot of that as far as I can see. What are you seeing happening in other districts that have been able to monetize some of the stuff you consider a priority?
Yeah. So just for the record, the plan fills two roles. One is that just gives you direction so that when the different user groups come to you and says, we want to do some investment, you've got a plan that says, okay, well, if you're going to do that, it looks like this. But the whole front part of the report that talks about all the engagement is written in such a way that you use it to go and get investment. So it's written in a way not to just be a master plan. It's written, so when investors look at this sort of stuff, whether it's private, and there's quite a lot of private investment in this space, they can see that there's been a lot of community engagement and it's captured in the communities behind these aspects of the project, and that makes winning funding that easier. The way we do it is basically we've got a couple of pretty dedicated council officers who are well connected to the different sporting groups. So I'll give you an example: the Aramaho Rowing Club, you got the Waka Ama, the Rowing Club, and Hapu and the council have all formed a bit of a committee to understand how we're going to deliver the project and what stages, and then we use that group to apply for those funding. And that's been, you know, we brought in 150K for that project up until now, and we think we can bring in hundreds of thousands moving forward. But it's because we've got a comprehensive master plan. We can show we've got everyone at the table and everyone's working together. So almost every one of the projects, from wetland developments to cycleways to the rowing club, are all working off that sort of structure. And the reason we're doing this, actually, to be honest, is that 3 years ago, we didn't really have to work so much this way because money was flowing out of central government, and we just had to identify whether you were going to which central government entity, and we would apply and get money that way. But that's all turned off. We've had to get much more creative about how we find money. And because we're going to private organisations and you know, some central government, the way to win that funding is to show that you're a collective. So stage one of the very first one is number one. Council officers, community leaders and sporting groups work together to select council long-term plan for funding development. Well, not just long-term plan, but all funding. But it's you've got to form those groups. And I think you've got well-organised groups already. It's a matter of just clicking into them, in my mind.
Further question, councillor Wilson.
Seeking to move receipt of the report, if I could.
You're moving, you seconding.
Yes, yes.
Councillor Rakawa, did you have a question as well?
No, I was going to.
You wish to speak to your motion?
Not to receiving it, no.
Any other speakers? Councillor Beard.
I think I've got a question, really.
Yeah.
I noticed that the access to the river kind of drops off the bottom of all of the maps. And I wonder what kind of consideration was given around all of that.
Yeah, so that was one of the groups that we met. So the whole river walkway had an hour as part of that conversation. I think it's really important. So part of the strategy is making that river connection. I think I've mentioned that in the midterm, and also working with regional council. I think they have a lot of say in that. So the river of Awa has been seen as a really, really important open space asset for the community. They love it. Particularly for walking, particularly its connection into the domain. So there's this really quite sophisticated, beautiful connection up into the domain. But the frustration is that council doesn't have full control over it. They don't have, you know, the community don't have full control over it. So it means bringing the regional council into the room and start working on a sort of a management plan for that edge of the river so that things can align. But the river is a big part of what makes Balls unique and as a recreational asset.
Any questions relating to the motion?
Sorry.
Any speakers to the motion? Put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Craig. I'll congratulate you. It's an exhaustive report. It's well presented and it is time. So thank you. It will inevitably become part of council's thinking around our long-term plan.
Thank you. Recommendation two.
Yeah. So recommendation two, would somebody like to move? Councillor Wilson moving, Councillor Rakawa second. Would you speak to it?
Just to endorse what you said, I think it's a great report. I think one of the key things is here is this is a report that can be picked up and used by community groups in conjunction with council, not instead of council. It's not council for the community groups. This is a partnership between community groups. So I think Craig has very well said that it enables funding. It does work. It has worked in Taihape. Taihape is moving with their plan now. We have seen some starting to bear fruit. And I think that this plan will adopt that and achieve exactly what we're looking to do as a council.
Put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. And before we close, I've been remiss, as I often am, and whatever. In the mayor's report, I didn't give the opportunity for the two reports to from rural and
Yes.
Mitchell and Wellington. And I just make sure that I move that those be received as well, and if they want, if the authors want to speak to them, I'll give them that opportunity. Out of sequence, accepted. but, councillor Okawa.
Question in regards to recommendation two, me, Andy. Were we going to note somewhere that the report would be added to with that footnote? Did we need to note it there or with what the public forum said this morning, Danelle's?
I'm happy to do so. Do you have some words around that?
Oh. As another recommendation. Yep.
I'd be happy with the words that said noting public forum comments, something along those lines, if that helped. And I'm happy with Craig's explanation that he can see to amend.
As an amendment to the report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Noting public forum comments.
So are you moving and seconding? No. And we'll put some words around that, I think. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Go back. I'd move that the report from councillors attending Rural Provincial be appendices to my mayor's report. Second. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Do those councillors wish to speak to them? So,
Two things I'd like to bring up. One is the RMP update that was provided this morning includes a link to the presentation from the CEO of Wellington City about what happened when he was involved in the council amalgamation. And I really encourage the rest of council to listen to that that presentation. And the other is that I'm not sure where to find it on here, but there was an update given of the expected timelines for the various different parts of the reforms that are going on.
timelines have been given to councillors.
Yes, but there was a diagram that was included in that. That was just a great reference document.
It
That's
was in
all.
the Morrison Low reporting, I believe, at the workshop. Maybe.
Oh, okay, so it's the same one as Smiler presented. Okay, thank you.
It's exactly the same. I think.
Yeah, so
Other than that, thank you for the opportunity.
anything further from councillors attended? I apologise for not bringing it up at the right time. So with that, I'll close the meeting at 11:50.